This week, a little something different. We are here at Edward Hayes Lighting Gallery with our guest this week, Callen Schaub. How's it going, man?
Good, man.
For the audience, you might notice there's some things in the background here. We're sitting here the night after we had our show. I don't even know what to call it. It was a painting performance, which is what Callen does, where he painted a guitar for the first time. Dude, thank you so much for coming out and doing that stuff for us.
Yeah, thank you. It was a great event, and first time painting a guitar live.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's awesome. We will definitely get into talking about the event itself, but I'm going to start with you the same way I start with all of my guests, and that's to find out more about your history. Tell me about, I want to know about the house you grew up in. Where was it? What was mom and dad like? Siblings? That kind of thing.
Okay. So I grew up in a very sort of creatively encouraging household. I'm very blessed in that way, I think. So my mom is very creative. She's an artist in her own own way as well. She's a librarian though, and she teaches, a school teacher, and
Okay.
so she's always, like, I got two sisters, one older, one younger. So I'm a middle child, and then my dad is an energy consultant. So what does that mean?
Thank you. That was
yeah.
my next question.
Yeah. So he works like privately. He's big on Twitter and stuff like that. But he understands like policy and stuff around like Hydro One and like
Okay.
like when the lights go out, they call my dad Tom Adams. You can check about Tom Adams Energy on Twitter.
That's okay. So all right. So mom's a librarian.
Yeah.
You're a middle child.
Yeah.
Dad's like a famous energy consultant. Like this is what he's a public energy consultant kind of thing.
Yeah, like he works independently, so he's like, which is kind of rare in that industry, because it's usually people will work with a corporation, so
Right.
he can kind of speak kind of
Outside.
freely.
Oh, that's cool.
So I don't fully understand it, and as a kid I was always like, what does my dad do? Like even now I'm kind of like right. So yeah, lots of policy and stuff like that, and he'll get like hired as a private like consultant for stuff like that.
So that's cool. You come from a house that has both entrepreneurial background, deep organizational skills, because you've got mom who's a librarian. That's got to be a little insane. I bet you your socks were like alphabetized. But you also, so you said you came from a creatively encouraging household. Tell me about how that worked.
So we would have, like, for example, like one day we went shopping and we got like climbing wall grips, and we showed up at home. My dad's like, oh, like look, we got like all these grips. We're making a climbing wall at home, and like that was just like, my mom was like, oh, okay, surprise, surprise. And so like along the staircase to go upstairs is a climbing wall. And we like with a belay system and everything. And so like before I would go to school and stuff, I would like go climbing.
The fuck out of here!
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and like other stuff like I was an arborist when I was like younger, so cutting trees and stuff like that, and we were doing a job like when I was too young to be an arborist. I was, but at a friend's house, my dad was outside in the backyard like chainsawing, and people always get confused, like, oh, so that's your dad's job? And no, it's like he's an arborist and energy consultant, so it's kind of strange. But I was like too young to do that yet, but I was like in this guy's like my dad's friend's attic, and I found a unicycle up in like the attic, and like I was like, okay, cool, I taught myself how to do that. And then I proceeded to teach my whole family how to unicycle. So it's like we're quite eccentric. Like we all like literally like be holding hands, like unicycling, going down the street, like all five of us, like my two sisters, my mom, my dad.
So you actually live Instagram. That's hilarious. So it's funny because before we came here, we were sitting at breakfast, and you had brought up the unicycle thing. And I said to you, you telling me that you ride a unicycle informs me about your work. And I mean, since it's brought up here, we might as well get to it. The part that really was interesting to me, now I know your history, and we can talk about it a little bit here. I know your history about, this was originally a bicycle that you sort of cannibalized and created your machine to spin. But balance is something that's very important to you, huh?
Yeah.
Like both as a metaphor and like specifically in some of your work.
Yeah, there is a kind of like a reoccurring theme there. Balance is big, and but yeah, I think I mean, with the unicycle thing, it was always just sort of saying different. Like I never kind of fit the mold. You know, it's like, what's your favorite sport? Oh, I like unicycling and rock climbing. Like, you know, everyone rock climbs now. It's kind of more hip, but
I wouldn't say everyone rock climbs.
no, but okay, I don't know. But yeah, it's just kind of a different approach, I guess. I don't know. Balance is definitely, but there's different kinds of balance. Yeah, there's a philosophy of balance in life, and you know, what's the like that quote? It's like, you know, everything like in balance. You know, I think it needs. There's balance on a unicycle, but it's a unique kind of balance. Like there's the balance on a unicycle is nothing like the philosophical balance of like work and play or
no, and I understand that. I'm not trying to stretch the metaphor more, but like the idea of a unicycle itself, like there's a control that's required for a unicycle versus a bicycle, right? Like there's a mental equation that has to happen in order for you to anybody who happens to get a unicycle in front of them, and that it's not like that's a thing that happens to everybody, but it did for me. I saw one when I was a kid, tried it a couple times and went like, yeah, I'm done, and just kind of walked away. But that specific, like a unicycle specifically, is one of those things where if you find it as a kid and you decide to lock onto it, it says a lot about the type of person you are, because it's one of those things that takes real determination. When you learn to ride a typical bicycle, your mom or dad or your friend or whatever was standing beside you, pushed you along, and then let go of you and let you do it on your own. Nobody's there to do that shit with a unicycle.
Yeah, so that's where the real kind of just trial and error comes in, and the repetitive confrontation of failure comes in, and you know, being it I taught myself, it was like it took me 2 months to go down to the end of the driveway, and that's, you know, only to just fall at the end of the driveway again, right? So it's always just a perpetual like kind of falling, right, and failing, and just kind of that determination. And I think that's something that you know, kind of I've brought into my art. Like, so there is kind of a connection there, and there's also a theatrical element that is sort of similar. Like there's something about a unicycle just because it is different. It's not
It's showy.
every day.
It's showy without even trying to be showy, right?
Yeah, like I like to think of myself as like a humble guy, you know, like when I'm riding a unicycle, I'm not like, oh, look at me, I'm riding a unicycle, like it, but for other people, they're like, oh, look, like he's riding a unicycle, and so there's a few like comments that just people kind of word vomit that I've like, because I've been doing it for years and years and years, like I've kind of like know them. So it's like, you know, oh, are you a clown? Can you juggle? Is it easy? Right. And those are the, right? That's what kind of people say. So similarly, like with my painting, it's you know, how long does it take to dry? Where did you, like, how did you come up with this?
Right.
A 5-year-old could do it.
And actually it's funny because we did spin around. Now, I mean, I think if you're that interested about the specifics about Callen's work, there's a million places I can find you talking about you sort of, you know, coming up with the bicycle thing and
sure,
and
we
that
don't
sort
have
of
to do
thing.
that here.
But
no.
But I am very much interested in that. But a 5-year-old could do it.
Yeah. So that kind of came about where, like, through the internet. It's maybe something that was always there, but then just by numbers got amplified.
Right.
So 2 years ago, CBC Arts did an interview with me, not too different from this, and it went viral, and then it spurred off a Business Insider like, you know, compilation, BuzzFeed, you know, a few of these other channels, and the millions and millions of views started kind of racking up. And so with that, you kind of get this.
I think we're okay.
We're still good?
Yeah, we're still good. We're in a lighting boutique and they have motion sensors and we're not moving around. But actually, yeah, it still looks great.
Okay.
We're fine.
So yeah, with that many views, you sort of get a poll of like what people are saying, you know, like, because like with algorithms, all like the, you know, the top comments rise to the top, and so although I was excited and my mom's calling me, she's saying like, oh, like, now like the view count is this, she's watching as the numbers go up and refreshing the page, and like, there was that initial excitement.
Walk me right back to this is the CBC interview.
This is the CBC, one, right? Like right at the beginning of like this like viral trend.
Let's go even back right before that a little bit. How did CBC become aware of you?
So I had an agent who I still work with a little bit at arm's length, but he's still a good friend of mine, Devin Patel of Artworks Consulting. And so he works out of Toronto. We ran an art gallery for 4 years on Queen Street, showing other like emerging artists, some of their like the beginnings of their career, their first solo show, stuff like that. We got voted Now Magazine's best independent gallery in, what was it, 2016 or 2017, I can't quite remember, but so he's gone on to continue that business. So now it's got 3 locations and it's doing great.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's cool that like I left it and it kind of still is continued. But so Devin is an entrepreneur as well, as am I, and he was kind of on the beginning of this like sort of Instagram trend right now. Like everyone's on Instagram, like even your grandma's on Instagram, like it's but that wasn't maybe the case like 5 years or 3 years ago. So CBC had just got their Instagram going, so it's the verified CBC account, but their content was not as developed, and there wasn't a lot of it at that time. So he reached out to them and said, hey, I'm working with this artist. He's got a very innovative process. You got to come see his studio. Let's set something up. And so that was the beginning of that. So it was his kind of entrepreneurial pursuit. And then they came and then to the studio and got the process, some interview, and put together kind of my first video like that.
So mom's watching the numbers go up.
Yeah, mom's watching the numbers go up. It's all very exciting because it was a leap of faith on my part. Like part of the success of that video, I think it's not just like I was always painting and then I got discovered and then I blew up. Like I needed to discover myself before that happened. I think because it was after that point where I believe became like a real artist. Like I was always an artist, but I was working a day job. Like I was working 3 jobs to pay all my rent and like a studio rent, gallery rent, apartment rent in Toronto.
Right. Yeah.
Just after paying for half of my university, my parents paid the other half. But I was working a lot of jobs to make that happen and selling other people's art and stuff. And I wasn't fulfilled. Like I knew I was gonna be unhappy if I didn't do the art full time. So I sort of just closed off all those other books in my life, just even not just work, but relationships, everything. And I was just went art full on, and that was the part where I think I really became an artist, and that self discovery and self belief. That was this is me, and then
yeah. You started this process when you were in college.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's what I'm guessing between seven and 8 years or something in there when you first started doing this to that first CBC interview, right?
Not quite that long. I've been doing it for now 9 years in total with this type of painting.
Yeah.
And it was only 2 years ago that the CBC.
So about 7 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
That's right. No.
Yeah. So in that time, because you were talking about discovering yourself as an artist. I'm guessing this wasn't the only thing you were doing. It wasn't just the bicycles, the spin art stuff.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you were kind of playing with different, because you seem like the kind of guy that kind of played in different mediums for a while.
Yeah, that's right. In that time, I was experimenting with different, I was kind of more inspired by street art, and did a fair share of murals.
Yeah, you did do that kind of work.
Yeah. Because that's. As a kid, that was what was cool, to get a spray can and do something illegal,
right?
and then doing legal murals after that and stuff like that. So and in university, like, I was doing like sculpture and metal welding courses, like woodworking courses, like I was definitely multidisciplinary, and that's a funny thing too, because now it's like, oh, can you actually paint? And that's like weird criticism, because like obviously I can paint, it just doesn't look like a.
But actually, I think that's an honest criticism, right? Because like when people see this kind of stuff, they assume that you spent all of your time just doing this stuff and maybe not focusing on the other end of it.
Yeah.
But you do have that kind of background where you.
Yeah, traditional background. Like I took like this one course, like one teacher. I took 3 of his courses. I took one of his courses, like Chin Kok Tan. He's like an amazing, like very traditional Chinese watercolorist painter. And I took one of his courses, and he was just like, he actually explained how to make something look like it did in reality, like because no one actually teaches you art. I feel like it's all like kind of like hypothetical, and like you just got to have the skills. But like he broke it down, so it was like kind of no bullshit kind of scenario. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this guy's like really good. So I dropped 2 other courses, and then took 2 other, like, so I took 3 courses with this one professor. And how to paint in oil, how to paint in acrylic, how to paint in watercolor, and how to make it look real, like replicate a model or a bouquet of flowers or whatever, still life. I can do that stuff. I don't enjoy the control element of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That was kind of where I was going with my next question is the stylistic differences between that and what you do now. Mm-hmm. I mean, we talked about this a little bit, because I kind of already know this answer, but talk to me about what sort of informs that decision process for you. Like, why you choose to work in a medium, and we're kind of coming back around to the initial question, but why do you choose to work in a medium that basically looks like any 5-year-old could do it, when you could sit down and do the...
There's an accessibility there, which I really enjoy. That it does kind of look easy, or there's an ease about it. The fact that I didn't like laboriously go about rendering an image or painstakingly manufacturing something. The fact that it's kind of, it all sort of had happened, like it occurred in a few moments. Like, how long did the painting take me? Oh, 2 answers. It took me a lifetime, or it took me a few minutes, right? Both are true. And I love the fact that it's just like, it's done with ease. And I feel like people can if they get it, and it vibes with them, because it's not for everyone, and that's fine too. But if it does vibrate with them, it's like there's some of that ease perhaps like comes into their own life, that it's not labored over. It's almost like a natural phenomenon. And it's a little bit, I kind of relinquish my the hand of the artist. Like, I don't care. It's not about me. It's like, it's more about the nature, and I'm trying to create just this natural thing. And it's and I think there's a innate beauty in the nature of things, like the fabric of the universe kind of type stuff, and that's what I'm kind of trying to exploit in my work.
I'm asking like 6 questions at once and trying to sort of entangle them all simultaneously, so this might seem a little outside, but when we're talking about the unicycle thing, that's the physical element of both of the about your painting process, and the physicality of actually having to deal with a unicycle. You say it even in your own sort of press about dealing with natural forces and physics and stuff.
Yeah.
How much of the mechanical side of that, like the physical reality of the shit that you're dealing with, does any of that take part? Like, is any of that part of the process of what you're thinking about, or is it just the stuff that you're using? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you think about at all like the way the paint's going to react to the canvas, like when it's hitting, like as it's going? Like, do you think about that stuff, or do you just use it in your process? Does that make sense to you?
I'm not sure I quite follow.
Okay, so I know, like, because of the nature of the way you paint, I know you're not specifically going out and saying, well, this one's going to be a swirl, or this one's going to be like, all of that's part of your process, and you know that certain things are going to happen as you're doing it. But when you step back, when you're not actually physically in creative mode, and you start thinking about the things that, like, because you have to think about how to build this stuff, you have to think about how to put that together. do you, even when we were talking about putting the guitar together, one of the things that you were talking about was like, well, we got one screw into a piece of wood, now we add some centrifugal force to it, it's going to blah.
Yeah.
When you think about your work,
Yeah.
is that part of the creative sort of feel?
Yeah, that's almost where more of the creative part happens is in the preparation. That's where the hand of the artist can be found. Whereas when the paint is flowing, it's almost like an automated process in a way. And I sort of just like I decide when to start and when to stop and the selection of colors, but everything else is kind of set into motion. Like the centrifugal force, like it's doing its own thing. Like the pendulum is doing its own thing. They're just playing out. So I guess
physics is math based.
Yeah.
And if you really start thinking about physics and start talking about physics, the only way you can talk about physics is in mathematics.
Yeah.
Except you're explaining all of the things that the math explains without writing it in a language that nobody understands. Except you're writing it in this other language that nobody understands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, does that, I don't know if that helps sort of frame the question I'm trying to get at here. Like, do you think about it as a conversation that way? Like, are you looking at it as a science experiment, or are you just fucking around with paint? You know what I mean? Like,
it's kind of science at play, right? Like there's these themes that could be explained mathematically, but I have yet to connect with a mathematician to really to speak about that intelligently. So I'm not going to try to.
Gotcha. Yeah. No. Mostly what I wondered is how much thought into that. So, like, do you study physics? Do you? No, it's just part of what you play with.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just play with it. I wouldn't presume to understand it on that level. Yeah,
Okay.
It's just kind of at play. I mean, I've got like in the same way that I guess like an athlete has an understanding of what's it called? When you throw a ball, you got to catch the ball. It's not an algorithm. There's a word for that.
Yeah, it's the arc you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's a specifically parabolic whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I can't even put my name on it, so I'm obviously not the person to speak to it. But like, what I'm saying is that like a baseball player, if you ask them like are you aware of the physics that like
sure
it's ingrained, it's deep within. Like,
you understand it, but you don't understand it, kind of thing.
It's like, yeah, like I'm in the moment, right? So
I only ask because Mom's a librarian, so chances are like you grew up with like a bunch of physics textbooks sort of under your bed and stuff, right? Like it's one of those things that could happen. So.
Well, no, like I'm dyslexic, so like it's always been like, although like my mom's like got all the best books and stuff, like I like struggled to read them at all times. Like we would like read out, like she'd read out loud to me and stuff like that. Like I'll do audiobooks and stuff like that because like. So in a way, the art is like, I like to think of it as kind of like a universal language, like a language of color, because I always struggled with the reading and the writing, and this is a visual world that sort of makes sense with me. And for people that aren't familiar with dyslexia, it's basically like it's not like, it's just like a learning disability. So like letters sort of are like kind of dancing on the page. B's could be a D is like a very common one, but I have it on a kind of more severe level a little bit where it's like, I don't know, not severe. I mean, everyone's specific with it, but like R's could be F's, like a 6 could be a S because they sound and have like similar like curvature and stuff. Like a 4 could be an F.
I almost wonder because because you're almost talking about now just the physical connections in your brain. I wonder how much having that sort of like difficulty when it comes to reading and writing informs the way you look at the world outside of reading and writing. You know what I mean? Because because whatever it is, the connection that's different between people with dyslexia and without dyslexia, that disconnection or that thing existed in sort of evolutionary history probably long before we had reading and writing.
Yeah.
So you almost, whenever I think about it, because I tend to find a lot of super creative people do have dyslexia or some sort of learning disability that sort of makes the standard education system really difficult.
Yeah.
And I tend to find that with the artist types that I speak to, growing up, and that's why I talk about, you know, where you came from, because knowing that environment and knowing what the childhood is like for somebody who goes on to make weird decisions like we were talking about before, always comes from this place of feeling sort of like outside of the group. And I think a lot of that has to do with whatever is connected with those learning disabilities. Does that make any sense, or did I just go rambling off into the left?
No, it's like I totally agree. It's like a non-linear sort of path, and just in virtue of me needing to still achieve the same goals as everyone else,
but with a different tool set.
Yeah. So it's just like I have to take a detour where somebody like, and everyone's got their own path, obviously, right? But just definitely in the education system, especially around reading and writing, you know, it's like I can get to the same goal. It's just going to be I'm going to have to take a detour, and maybe the tools that I use will be a little bit different. But it's like a blessing and a curse. I mean, in a way, my spatial like sense, you know, like is kind of heightened in a way, like you know, I'm seeing these letters in 3D, but like I'm also like very physically like kind of like spatially aware, and perhaps, I mean, I don't know if there's science behind this or whatever, but like that can sort of informs my understanding of like the relationship between you know, spinning you know, canvases and trapezes and pendulums of this sort, you know, that they're all those things like really make sense to me, and maybe not the same for somebody else. And I mean, that's also kind of why I connected with this, you know, this Autism Ontario event as well, because, you know, it's in some ways being autistic is, you know, you have these difficulties that the everyday person might not, but in other ways you're like way more like you know, aptly able to do things. Like some of the mathematical achievements of you know, autistic people with like autism is outstanding, and you know, that their understanding of these certain aspects is far exceeds the average person, and so like. So I think it's kind of like, it's kind of an interesting argument. I can't really speak to it entirely.
Oh, I don't think anybody's suggesting we're solving the world's problems here. It's
no.
It's always interesting to me to talk to people who have come up through, you know, alternative sort of, I'm going to say alternative lifestyles, which has a different sort of connotation entirely, but like just an like that sideways, like that just left the center, you know what I mean? Like just to the side of normal, you know, because it really, to me, the people that come up in an environment, and it's so interesting that you said specifically that your environment encouraged that. When you get that encouragement and you have that ability and you have people around you when you're young that show you it's okay to be different, it allows you to make those choices much easier than the people who are having it slammed down on them, you know what I mean? And I wonder if you understood that as you were coming up in it.
Like, I guess this comes back to the upbringing and stuff, but like, I was always kind of a little bit of an outsider, not to be like, oh, I'm an outsider, like it's, but it's like, I didn't have TV when I was a kid. Just not saying I had, like, you know, everyone's like talking about television shows, like making references. I'm like, I don't know what that is. Like, you know, kids have like, you know, Crazy Bones and, you know, Pokemon cards. Like I didn't have that sort of stuff. Like my parents were just like, they're just not into that. Like they're not married, which, you know, is more common now. But back when I was growing up, that wasn't really a common thing, you know. And just like, so like, being bored in my my house was not acceptable.
You didn't get that option.
That was not an option, right? Like it's like, oh, you're bored? Okay, like here's a hammer, here's some nails. Like you're building the deck with me,
right?
You're better off to be like
just go find something to do.
Go find something to do. So yeah, so I've always kind of like that's my normal is kind of in a kind of creative space like that. Like it's funny too. Like my mom's a librarian, but like she's dyslexic as well, which I only learned a few years ago.
Okay.
Which
Well, she came up at a time when that wasn't even really a thing.
yeah, it wasn't even recognized, and like now like there's all sorts of like this. The education system is awesome, and you know helps like has options to make that like learning more achievable, which I had an experience. I like diagnosed, and then I had like a special classes that I went to. Like she didn't have that. Right. She was just like, oh, you're like it was just extra hard for her.
Work harder, stupid is kind of what their option was. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that way, yeah, my upbringing was sort of unique to say the least.
Were you like? This is such the wrong question because I don't think the answer is yes, but you weren't a shy kid at all though, right? You weren't a kid that had a hard time making friends.
Like I was never one for public speaking or
right.
or anything performance at all. I was more of a typical artist. Like I was the kid in the class that he's the one that can draw good, but I'm in the back. Like
you were a quiet kid.
Oh yeah,
that surprises me actually.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I was.
Did you feel outside because of the house you came up in? Not maybe you didn't recognize it at the time.
I didn't care. If people if they were like I wasn't maybe one of the cool kids, but I wasn't not. Like I wasn't like a I mean, yeah, you get into like bullying and stuff. Like, I guess, yeah, no, everyone's been bullied as a kid and stuff. But
you don't have the big sob stories. Like,
I don't identify with that. No,
yeah.
People didn't mess with me. I didn't mess with them. I sort of stuck to myself, and I was always just kind of sketching or something like that. Like nobody's business,
You were encouraged kind of like throughout your life with your art, though, right? Like you never had anybody kind of tell you, until now, have anybody tell you that it was useless and stuff, right?
That's right. So that was a huge leg up, and been super blessed to have that upbringing, and I'm very grateful of that, and Mom, if you're watching this, thank you. She would always encourage me.
So talk to me about how you're finding the art world, because now you've been elevated, let's say, right?
No, yeah, it's a funny world. It's a big world, and it's a very prestigious world, and it's one that I don't have access to. And that sounds kind of strange, but in a way, like when I talk about the art world, I'm not talking about like just showing in any gallery. Like I've got my eyes set on the prize of like the top 1% of the art world, like that. So that's like the Gagosian, the David Zwarner, the White Cube, like Hauser and Wirth, like. These are like the top like most elite galleries that sell like 25% of the total artwork that's sold in the world, period. Right. Like that's there's still another large percentage that's available, like that a whole other world does, but we're talking about like a few corporate 3 or 4 galleries that are doing the majority. Like that's the art world. Right. That's the art world that I'm talking. Just to clarify, when we're talking about art world, so that's a very prestigious, very elite, and the way that you get there into that cool club is through like the pursuit of it's really based on like thought, like it's contemporary art, and everything is conceptually based, like more than it is. Like about like whether you can paint or not, or whether your paintings are beautiful or look good or have a cool process. And I'm not really in that realm at the moment. Like, so until I start like really seriously thinking about what I'm doing, and really seriously developing something that's actually like an actual phenomenon, right? you don't get access to that world, right? So and that's kind of a harsh reality because I've got my my heart set on that, and I will get there because just to be clear. But the way that I'm going to get there is going to be different because right now what I'm doing is more accessible, and I'm really kind of playing to the Instagram artists and people that might not know about the art world. They're like, when I'm like name dropping these guys, they don't know what those guys are. They've never gone to, they couldn't maybe even care less, right? I'm sort of trying to access those people that and give them access to a world that is colorful and full of motion and is creative, and that is something sensational for somebody that might not know anything about art, right? And I want to speak to people that do know about it as well. I'm not trying to segregate my demographics here. Yeah. I just think that there's this huge potential to connect with people.
I think it's different conversations, right?
Yeah.
Like completely different conversations. And I think one of the things that I did notice with you yesterday is that might be the part of your art that you understand better than anybody else. Is that what level of the conversation you can have with the person who's in front of you? Because I watched you have conversations with different people that came up to you yesterday, and the majority of them, and my friends included, who came, first thing they said to you is, I don't know shit about art, but I know I like this, right? Yeah. That's definitely one level. But then I also saw you talk to, well, we've had conversation, before this about, just about art in general. But one of the things that was most impressive to me was when Tina's daughter came up here and the other kids were up there. I've got video, hopefully I can find it and put it in here, but I've got a video, I've got to pull it up and look at it. But while it was happening, I could see it. You turned on. Like you were standing over in that side, and you were doing what you're doing. I don't remember which painting you were working on. But you looked over and you noticed that the kids were over there and they were kind of investigating. And I watched you switch. Like I watched you change. And you kind of went, oh, boom, now I'm with these kids. And you became a different person. Like you were the painter artist guy here for a second. And then you turned and saw the kids and suddenly you were like, mom's the wrong connotation here. Yeah. But there was definitely there was a change in who you were and how you approached what you were about to do, but you were still dealing with the exact same situation. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean...
Are you conscious about that?
Not fully, because the transition is just organic for me. But I mean, I've taught art, to like young kids, young students. It helped kids get into high school, art high schools, with their portfolios, and so kind of the youth, and even younger. I've done art programs, art classes, fun art, all the different levels. I've gone to art music festivals where the kids can come and do collaborative paintings with me. It's funny because it's a level playing ground where in a way I switch and put on the kind of the kid talk, but it's not too different from the adults in the room.
But that's what I mean. It wasn't the language that changed. You changed. You became a different. Hopefully, I can find the video so that I can kind of put it up as we're talking.
Okay.
But it was. You were in the moment, as you should be, because you're in the middle of a performance. Which is another part we haven't even started talking about, is the fact that what you do is a performance more than it is a painting.
Yeah.
But you're in the middle of a performance, and you were working on it, you were concentrating on what you're doing, and I mean, and this, as you're performing, you've got a bravado, you've got a performer face that you put on.
Yes.
I have never seen anybody snap it off on stage the way you did to address those kids. It wasn't even a thought for you. You know what I mean? It was there's a performer, and then there's a teacher. And there was a switch that went off there, and I found that fascinating. I found that fascinating because I think people get so self-absorbed in what they do and who they say they are and think they are, that in a moment like that, turning a switch like that on would be a thing that they had to think about and do. But to me, it's just almost like you've almost got like multiple personalities that just naturally coincide with each other that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also aware that, no, I appreciate that perspective too. But yeah, like last night's event, was the girl's name, Aria,
Yeah. And Liam.
And Liam. We were here for Liam, so in a way, it was, we're raising money, I'm doing art, there's drinks, there's music, there's a lot of distractions, and so in a way, it was like, because all eyes are on me in that moment, it's like, okay, Callen Schaub, do your thing, and by then directly, speaking to Liam and having tuning everything else out, it was like kind of a way of me directing the energy to be like, this is why we're here.
Okay.
And so it was conscious in that way that I wanted to sort of tune out all the other distractions of like, the event and the bravado and the music and the drink, like, it all kind of adds up and can be distracting. And it's like, here's Liam, he's looking at the art and like, he's been coloring all day, he loves color, and he's engaging with me, and like what is he saying? And I listen to him and try to sort of download and like get on his level and then share that with everyone else as a kind of reminder that and the real hope that like when I'm connecting with kids is that I inspire them, right? That's like that's my goal. Like, I want to inspire the world. I want to make the world more colorful, and I'm going to do that with paint. That's just like the tools that I have to do that. But really, like, when I make a video or I do a live performance, like, I'm trying to connect with people because they haven't seen it before. Yeah. They're seeing it for the first time, and something clicks, and it clicked for me, and I'm fortunate that I've been able to just like tune everything else out and go full on, do this full time. Not everyone else has that opportunity, so like I can kind of be like this martyr of color and like
That's great.
and in that way people can be like, wow, like I hope that they can see that and be inspired. And kids are just in such a good position to do that. Right. They've yet to sort of close doors.
This is going to put too much emphasis on it, but I think what was most remarkable to me about it is that you took the kids far more seriously than you did any of the adults standing around watching you.
It's serious for them. I'm only giving them the same amount of attention that they're giving me.
Yeah.
Right? If they're not.
I don't mean that as an insult, by the way.
No. I mean that seriously too. I mean, like if the kids are joking around and they don't care, like I don't care, like.
Oh, I got
right?
you. Okay.
It's not just like I love kids, like I'm gonna like no matter what give them the attention, like. No, like they were really interested and they were very inquisitive and they got questions and they're wondering what's going on, and like I'm just being a good teacher, role model, everything, like, because I'm not gonna brush them off, like if they're it's the performance is a it's an interactive thing, right? And they're potentially the most engaged in the group, right? The way that they see color is maybe different like than the rest, and like how many people in the room were like messing around with color all day?
Yeah.
Well, the kids were the most, right?
They were, yeah.
Like they're the ones with the coloring books and stuff. So in a way, when Liam's like, this looks like a zebra, like when I'm using the black and white, I'm like, okay, cool. Like that's, that's honest, unfiltered.
Yep.
You know, he's not. He's honestly like feeling that, and when is Leah, yeah, Arya, sorry, yeah, when Arya is saying, you know, her favorite color is silver and blue and stuff like that, they really identify with like what your favorite color is when you're a kid.
There's nothing else. You have nothing else to think about, so it's really important to you.
It's really important. Yeah. So like that's like a, you know, I take that seriously, and I take kids seriously, and I speak to them like adults because, you know, they're just miniature adults.
That's great. That's awesome. No, it was such a privilege to be here, and see you perform, and see a crowd of people here in Windsor that don't normally get to see things like this. How many performances like this have you done?
I've done like over 100 now.
Really?
Yeah.
Talk to me about the worst one. You don't have to name names if that hurts, but it's the super fail, and I mean, not that any of this could ever be a real failure, but I know some of them you could walk away not quite as satisfied as you would want to be. Because I swear to God, if you tell me they've all been spectacular, we're shutting this off and walking away. Let's see what we were talking about right before we got. Oh, we were talking about your worst performance. Actually, we were going to talk about worst performance. Phew. I've now noticed we're going to see. Don't move, because I got a worse question for you.
Okay.
And I'm glad we're at the end here, and because you're going to try to avoid this one, I think, but I want you to answer it. You said something yesterday. I overheard a conversation. And somebody was asking you about who inspires you the most.
Oh, okay.
And what you said was, if I was on camera, I'd have one answer. If I wasn't on camera, I'd have another one.
Yeah.
You're on camera, and I want them both.
Okay. So this can be taken the wrong way. But I inspire myself.
Okay. All right. This is the not on camera one, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. And let me unpackage that because it comes off super egotistical, and I've said that before, and people have like straight up like denounced me from like, you know, they were super fans and they've like unfollowed me just based on that statement alone.
Okay.
So let me explain. If I were to list off some people that I was inspired by, some artists, if it was a kind of music, if it was an experience that I had, especially if it was other people, it would take the attention of, like, you know, who would I be inspired by? It would be some like household names in the art world. They've already made it. Mm-hmm. They don't need this press right now. Mm-hmm. So I want to change the focus, because you know, the focus is it's an interview with me. So that's why I'm going to talk about me, because that's why we're here. We're not here to promote somebody else who's already out there. Who needs the attention? I think it's the viewers, and so it's an obligation that I have to my audience to live up to this sort of idealized like icon mm-hmm. of this Callen Schaub brand that is you know, inspirational for people of all ages, that is making the world a more colorful place, that is promoting positivity and has like fun movement based, like engaging work, like that whole package, like that I don't take that lightly. Like that is almost like it's more human, like it's greater than me. Like I am not always doing those things, but in a way I should be, right? So I need to live up to that. So it's this kind of this persona that I am always trying to achieve and push to outdo, to live up to myself.
That's a great fucking answer, to be honest with you. I think it's interesting because when somebody like me, or somebody like who you were talking to last night, ask you who you're inspired by, I think often what they're looking for is the same question I asked you, which is tell me about the house you grew up in. Right? It's like tell me about where you're pulling your ideas from. And I think one of the to the point that you're making, what a lot of people miss when they're dealing with contemporary artists, somebody that they can actually sit and talk to, is that that's the same artist that you're sort of like elevating in your mind when you ask who they're comparing themselves to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's really hard when somebody asks you, you know, who you're inspired by. I think the message that gets missed in whatever answer you give is that no matter who as an artist you're inspired by, you're pulling away from that and only using pieces no matter what you do.
Yeah, and also the inspiration. Like I want to turn the attention off of people that don't necessarily need the boost. Like I think that like my audience needs the attention. Like I get inspiration from my followers. Like I don't load my work up with a whole lot of conceptual baggage that like it's kind of a like you can look at it in one way and say, oh, it's vapid and it's void of meaning, and you know, okay, that's fine. You didn't see anything in it. But other people, because it's this sort of blank, just abstract space on canvas with, you know, pretty colors and some movement, people can project their own experience on it, and what they pull from it is something that is so inspirational for me. I don't need to go find inspiration anywhere else. The experiences that I've had with people, and I'll mention like a few of them just to get like shed light on this. I've had a painting I called like a little voice. So as a child, my mom said, listen to the little voice in your head. As a child, what does that mean? That means, brush your teeth, do your homework, little voice, right? As you get older, that little voice says different things, right? So I thought that was kind of a cool kind of concept. So I called the piece that. So somebody reaches out to me online, hey, love that piece, little voice, how much is it? Well, she couldn't afford it, no big deal. She says, well, listen, I can't afford it, but what that piece meant to me was I was going through, like this is her speaking in her voice, a lot of negative stuff in my life right now. I just lost custody of my child. I'm I'm a recovering alcoholic. It's almost Christmas, and I fell down the stairs and I think she broke her arm. And it's this sad story. Christmas is coming around. She's not with her kid. She's single parent. And it's like terrible. But this piece, little voice, she says, well, I can't afford it, but it's the lock screen to my phone, and it reminds me to have hope every day. What the hell? I can't make that stuff up.
Right.
That inspires me. I had this woman reach out, again, a situation where the person, how much does this painting cost? Well, it costs this. And she ended up, she's like, I don't care how much it costs, I'm going to get it no matter what. She ended up not getting the piece. That's okay. But she informed me that it's this piece called Serendipity, and she's like, yeah, well, my lesbian lover and I had a stillborn child, and this piece, Serendipity, we want to have it because it gives us a sense of serendipity that we're going to try again, actually, and it's helping them with the grief of their stillborn child. That's inspirational to me. So these are kind of I get a call like this, maybe not every week, but a few a month, where these experiences with people, I'll hit you with another one. There's a woman from Herat in Afghanistan, and she came to Canada to learn medicine, and then her dad is like, go to Canada, we'll get the education, come back to bring that medicine home to us. So she came here, and she was I'm not fully clear on all the details, but I'm pretty sure in Herat as a woman, you're not really allowed to be an artist in the way that the Western world thinks of being an artist, is like signing the work, being like you can max, like you can't do anything representational, and you can do henna,
right?
And henna's beautiful and everything, but you can't put your name to it, and you definitely can't do a portrait. An abstract, I think, would be out of the question, or at least the kind of stuff that I do, right?
Sure.
Anyways, she sees my stuff and she's like, wow, like I want to, bring this back to the the young women and show them like, this art, and like, so she wants to do a collaboration to bring it into her art. Like, I'm like, these are the kinds of like things I want to shed light on, which is more, I feel like all of that and speaking to those people and those stories is more important than me saying, here's this artist I'm inspired by, or I like to listen to this kind of music when I'm painting, or this one time I had this experience and it made my art inspired with these colors or whatever. Like I think that's like a less important conversation than shedding light on these kind of profound little snapshots of people's lives. And I don't know these people. Like, they're finding this stuff online and or in reality, and like that's why I like do my art, like more than anything, is because there's something going on here that's more profound than the spin paint guy, right? That's like entry level, like, okay,
that's the shit a 5-year-old can do.
That's the shit a 5-year-old could do. Okay, cool. Well, these profound, there's got to be something going on here that's more important. So that's why I feel obligated to keep on doing it and to push it and to do a world tour, which I'm doing 2020. To really to bring it to people, because there's something going on here that's really important. And if the art world doesn't accept it, that's fine, because there's a lot of people that's affecting in some profound ways. And
I think it comes back to a little bit of the conversation that we had at breakfast, and that's artists spend a lot of time looking at how art was before, and I think what artists need to do is spend more time figuring out the time that they're in. I think you might have it. Dude, it was such a pleasure. This is so much fun. I cannot wait to see once everything is finished and dried and everything that comes out of it. Had such a blast yesterday. Thank you for hanging out with us today. I'm really looking forward to see what comes out of all this.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
All right, folks, that'll do it for this episode of the AVB Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to go down and click on the subscribe button to make sure that you can continue seeing our episodes as we put them out. We do a lot of videos, and there's a couple of them here that we hope you'll enjoy. There's one up there that we think you might like, and of course, there's one of our playlists down there for you. Make sure you say hello to some of our sponsors in the links down below while you're there, and of course, you can find links there to today's guest and all of our other social media. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.